In the past, I've talked about the introduction to the 2002 reboot series of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe by Mike Productions. The series overall made changes from its 80s counterpart, but did you ever stop to compare the intros between the two? Hello, my name is Jukka, and this time we're taking a look at the thematic differences between Filmation's He-Man and the 2002 He-Man. Now, for easier points of reference, I'm going to be focusing on the first season introductions from both series. With Filmation, the differences are minimal, and as for the 2002 series, well, I'll get to that later. Let's start with the one most of you are probably very familiar with.
Defending our planet.
To be honest, I feel a bit silly recapping it, because the intro does all the exposition a kid in the 80s would need to sit down and watch an episode. This was common with many cartoons and live-action shows, but I digress. We start off with Filmation Presents, and then the main logo on a black background. And after it, Prince Adam emerges in front of the screen from a mysterious dark red background, which I always found very mysterious and intriguing. He introduces himself, what planet he's from, and that he's protector of the secrets of Castle Grayskull. Now, the intro started with a disembodied voice saying the series was called He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, so if you hadn't seen the toys yet, you might wonder when do we get to see this He-Man fellow. Adam quickly introduces his pet tiger Cringer against a forest backdrop. Cringer displays his scaredy-cat attitude, while Adam displays a knack for humor.
This is Cringer, my fearless friend.
Next, the intro cuts right into the good stuff, with how he was bestowed the magical powers by lifting the Sword of Power. He says, by the power of Grayskull, and we are introduced to the transformation sequence that would become well known in every episode. Cringer becomes Battlecat with He-Man now narrating, as he introduces himself, contrasting to Adam's earlier narration. He-Man has a brighter red background, which is a reminiscent of the toy card art from the vintage line, and as he steps closer to us, a punch to the screen gives us credits for Lou Scheimer and Hal Sutherland in blue background, which could have been jarring, but they fly by quickly, and Filmation animated Sutherland's name to transform into the Sorceress, through first her Zoar form into human to keep the pace flowing smoothly, with He-Man introducing us to the three who knows his secret. Man-at-Arms is shown in a similar forest backdrop as Cringer was earlier, but it's not the same spot, giving a sense of familiarity, and from his blast we cut to Orko displaying his magical abilities, and we are back at Castle Grayskull. Though this time the drawbridge is open, unlike before, and as He-Man recounts the mission to protect the castle from villains, we have shots of Trapjaw, Merman, Beastman coming at the viewer right as He-Man ends his speech with "evil forces of Skeletor," and Skeletor's head is laughing eerily over Grayskull. And with that, the title is shown again on the screen, and in roughly 1 minute we know all the basics. We have a grasp of who the good guys are, and who the bad guys are, and what the main focus is. Castle Grayskull has secrets, and as the forces of evil try to get them, the good guys must defend it. Now, if we don't count secret identities as different characters, we are shown 4 good guys, 4 bad guys, and 1 beast. So things seem somewhat even. Now personally I always hoped to see Evelyn appear among the villain headshots to match against the one female shown from the hero's side. But with the roster of characters we have, one can argue there can be some pairing up to be made. He-Man obviously against Skeletor, Beastman might go against Battlecat. We learned that Merman and Man-at-Arms share history between them, and well, Trapjaw and Orko would eventually bump heads as the series progressed.
I've been waiting a long time for this.
Overall, the intro is concise. The setting keeps a nighttime theme with its purple sky background. The color mood helps make all the characters pop up, and the intro makes sure not to use back-to-back shots of characters with similar color schemes, so everyone is easily recognizable. The unnamed forest landscape would become known as the Evergreen Forest, where Castle Grayskull resides, tying it all together. Now, let's take a look at the 2002 version. Obviously, it pays homage to the original introduction, with Prince Adam once again in front of the screen, though he is merely standing there as the camera pans back and we have a glimpse of the already destroyed Hall of Wisdom, before the backdrop changes to a spot at the Royal Palace grounds. Interestingly, the method with a widening shot and black bars fades away as soon as we see a full image of Adam, meaning Adam was always standing at the palace grounds. As Adam narrates the same shtick about protecting secrets of Grayskull, we see Cringer is already beside him, and this time it's a more subtle animation of Cringer depicting his scaredy ways with his shaking legs. Now comes the biggest difference, as Adam's intro speech is cut short because of a blast coming off screen. Adam looks up from the smoke and we see it was Trapjaw who shot at the palace, falling down from a pack of griffins, and the villains fly quickly across the screen. Whiplash, Merman, Triclops, Evelyn and Beastman respectively. Most of them have little moves they get to do, like Whiplash turning around with his tail, Merman somersaulting in mid-air, Triclops shooting with his eye beam, Evelyn's staff glowing, and Beastman simply growls at the viewer. The next shot cuts to them all on top of roofs of the Royal Palace towers, with Skeletor looms over them all, filling most of the screen as he lands. Prince Adam then transforms into He-Man, spinning around from left to right as he lifts the power sword to the skies, and when he becomes He-Man, he again spins around, though in reverse, which could be an attempt not to have repeat spinning in same direction, and points sword back up with camera giving us a low angle. Then we see the roster of heroes appear on the screen. Stratos flies in, Ram-Man and Teela. Then, as Man-at-Arms appears, we see Stratos take off in the background. Man-E-Faces lands, Buzzo flies in, and as He-Man jumps in front, we see Mechanic appear from the side with the camera still panning back. And Orko flies in, and Stratos returns for the group shot to hover in mid-air. Good job, Stratos. The title shoots behind them in the sky, and within 30 seconds the intro is over. Phew. So, let's see what we have here. One thing fans over the years pointed out is that while they had fondness for the whole introduction speech, and would have liked to see it used somewhere, as it later did in the special The World of He-Man, they did like how this version basically cut short the whole talking to the camera spiel, and that it shows a more action-oriented nature where the bad guys mean business. How there's no time to deliver the introductory narration since evil strikes at a moment's notice. Personally, I see where they're coming from though. As I brought up in my other video, even the director himself agreed that this intro can become tedious on repeat viewing. But for the sake of this video and comparison to the Filmation version, one thing that struck me was the lack of Castle Grayskull. And I'm not sure if it has been discussed already, but I mean, we get a glimpse of it during He-Man's transformation, but even there the sword and lightning effects obscure most of it. And unlike in Filmation, here the setting takes place at the royal palace. We hear Adam mention that he protects Grayskull, but it's not shown during it to match visuals, which seems like a misstep. Thematically, Grayskull is and always will be at the center of the core idea, no matter how many reboots you make, with New Adventures being an exception.
But no place is as magical as the mysterious Castle Grayskull.
It's the Masters of the Universe collection. And for my kids, the legend begins here, with Castle Grayskull.
In a way, it goes with the overall feeling of Masters of Eternia, as the 2002 version was jokingly called, because the creators wanted to keep the show more grounded, and thus left out any dimensional portal hopping, going into outer space, or even talking animals. Granted, the whole reboot for the show relies on older fans knowing the property, but for any new fans, the fast action, spinning around, quick shots of characters can leave the sense that Royal Palace is the focus for the bad guys. It is also the place where other villains like Count Marzo and Evil Seed focused their attacks. Castle Grayskull is kept a secret from many of the characters in the show.
Grayskull's just a pile of stones. What's the defense? Don't know, but if Man-at-Arms needs us, it's good enough for me.
And it takes a couple episodes for Skeletor to realize Grayskull's importance in relation to the Hall of Wisdom.
I have gained something far more valuable. Knowledge. That wretched Teela was prepared to sacrifice Daddy's life to save Castle Grayskull. Now, what could possibly be in that old pile of stones worth dying for?
Speaking of, the starting point with already flattened Hall of Wisdom goes by so quickly that you may blink and miss it. The idea may have been to tie it that it's where the Elders transformed and moved away into Grayskull, with its widening shot and black bars behind Adam, meaning it is a place of significance and piece of important history for the characters. But cutting from that location straight to the palace, it gives a mixed meaning during this time that Adam talks about Grayskull. Jumping a bit, the contrast in transformation sequence for 2002 series seems to want to focus on the image of He-Man holding the sword up in air. But because that's already where the transformation started, they go out of their way to have him spin around with the camera movement, only to end up pointing it back up again. Without going too much into the transformation sequences, the Filmation version feels more natural because when He-Man lowers the sword to his chest, it has a nice symbolic meaning when he says, "I have the power," and pulls the sword closer to him. And from there he can naturally point it towards Cringer. While in 2002 we completely forget Cringer transforming into Battlecat, but cut instead to the group of heroes who stand with He-Man. Now, another comparison to be made is, here we see Skeletor and 5 villains, against He-Man and 8 heroes. So that would suggest the villains are outnumbered. The last shot of heroes standing for the group shot is against a generic barren terrain, and once again it might have been better if they were standing in front of the royal palace to defend it from the villains who loomed over it menacingly. But I can see with so many characters already in the shot and logo, it would have been very cramped. But I'm gonna stop here. I've already rambled for over 14 minutes on this. And to reiterate, this isn't to say whether one intro is better than the other. Each approach things from a different perspective, so your mileage may vary. And while Filmation kept their intro basically the same for both of its seasons, the 2002 show did give a drastically different intro for the Snake Man saga. But that'll be a different video for another time. I hope you enjoyed this video. It took me a lot of time to composite HD quality footage for both intros, and this is a topic I've been meaning to cover for some time now. Remember to subscribe as the platform is going through some changes in 2020. Hit the notification bell to know all the updates I have, since more videos will be coming. Let me know what you think about the 2 animated intros to He-Man, and what you possibly hope to see from the upcoming Netflix He-Man series. My name is Jukka, and I wish you good journey.